Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Duke. Recently we spent a lot of time exposing the crazy leftist agendas being pushed in California, New York, Oregon. But you might be surprised to learn that the same sexual anarchy with our kids is taking place in Colorado. I'm pleased to welcome Sherronna Bishop. Sherronna, America's mom, tell us a little bit about how sex and sex education, radical sex education, is becoming the norm in Colorado schools.
Well, this past legislative session has been an absolute attack on the liberties of people in Colorado. And when we started catching wind of what was called House Bill 1032, it was a controversial sex education bill. We all started doing our homework. We'd never heard of it before and realized that, of course, the founders of this type of education are, in fact, Planned Parenthood. So we started getting a little bit concerned and started really looking into the bill to see what this is going to add to our lives and what it's going to do to our children. Essentially, this is a grooming process. It's a paid for by the government grooming process to sexualize your children. It's not just about teaching them their body parts and basic biology. That's not what this is. This is the right for children to be sexual, starting in 3rd grade on up. Comprehensive in that it weaves throughout their normal education. So there will be elements of sexual education and sexualization in your science class, in your reading, when you're reading books. The books that they're choosing to read are about transgender, about 20 or 72 different spectrums of gender, that you're not really a boy or a girl. Imagine being an 8-year-old and these things are being thrust at you and you're supposed to trust your teacher. You're supposed to listen to what they have to say. The International Planned Parenthood Federation has already created the curriculum for for comprehensive sex education. And when you go in and you look at what they are providing for teachers to use on these children, it is unbelievable. For example, and it doesn't tell us what ages necessarily to be using this curriculum for. So one of the main points is if you have no money, don't worry. If you can't buy the proper tools for at-home sexualization, you can just use fruits and vegetables. I wish I was joking, but I'm not. And what's happened is that this Bill 1032 is supposed to be, you can choose it. You can choose to have it in your school or not, and they'll fund it. You'll get a grant for it. But what it's doing is it's emboldening other districts that may not adopt this exact 1032 comprehensive sex ed, but they're applying this idea of sexualization from very, very early on. In Boulder County, they were already starting comprehensive sex ed without the parents' permission in kindergarten. In kindergarten, they're talking about and equating friendship, holding hands, having a good buddy, with oral sex, with touching and petting, with even anal sex. And I apologize that it's so graphic, but I can't seem to help people if I don't just speak exactly the truth and exactly what is going on here in Colorado. Interestingly enough, the first training was held for our teachers up in the eastern part of our state by an organization called A Queer Endeavor. That's the name of their organization, and their goal is, this is their words, not mine, how to queerize your classrooms from PK to 12th grade. So I thought comprehensive sex ed was supposed to be for 3rd grade on up. But because of the emboldening of our governor and his fast-forward, super progressive sexualization of children agenda in Colorado, districts are feeling very emboldened to share this disgusting information and start doing it when they are very, very, very small.
They're activating kids at very young ages to become sexual beings. They are encouraging children at the youngest ages to experiment, to think sexually, to view everyday, ordinary relationships as potentially sexual relationships. And I think that's exactly right. Step back for a second. Let's talk about 1032. Who introduced 1032? Give us, in a nutshell, 2 or 3 things that 1032 is trying to do, and where is the state of it now?
Yeah. So what the problem was in Colorado is people had decided that sex education was abstinence-only education. That's just not accurate. Abstinence-only sexual education in the state of Colorado, first of all, we don't have a standard program. Every district gets to choose what that looks like. So that's the big lie number 1. Comprehensive sex ed is based on the idea that all we're telling kids is don't have sex. You can't have sex. End of sex ed. That's a lie. That's not what's happening. It comes from a negative connotation, though, that if you're having sex as a minor, that there's emotional damage, there's physical damage, there's the potential for pregnancy, for diseases. It's a negative connotation. What 1032 says is that you can no longer speak negatively about sex.
Yeah, what this is called the so-called sex-positive curriculum, right? They object to your parental rights to limit your kids' sexuality and sexuality education. They object to your religious and moral concerns. They object to the idea that chastity and modesty and reticence, these are all good things historically. What they want to do is two things. One, come between mom and dad and the kids. Two, come between religious traditions and religious ideas of morality and get rid of those. They want to take your kids. They assume the role of the primary parent, and rather than giving them, and as you said, anything that would be negative, right? The idea that anal intercourse is fraught with all sorts of dangers. We're going to get rid of those negative talks, and we're going to tell them how empowering it is. This is what they do now. And so really, when you boil this down, Sherronna, and I think this is the key, as bad as it is as sex education, as bad as it is in terms of its lack of morality and its disinformation. I mean, we're giving kids information about sex and sexual contact that is untrue. For instance, this idea that somehow anal intercourse, even with condoms, is as safe as anything else. We know Centers for Disease Control tells you that's not true. The condom makers tell you that's not true. So we are giving not just quote unquote positive information about sex, but dishonest information.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to really stress is what you're saying is that division between parent and child. First of all, with the opt-out form, so we never know when our children are going through these classes at school. That's number one. But secondly, our governor actually issued an executive order that was really interesting because they chose not to enforce the mandatory vaccine bill here in Colorado. He decided to do a different executive order, and it ties into sex education because they're adding a whole new educational realm that makes sure to let children know, 15 years old and up, that they do not need parental consent to have any sort of vaccinations done. The HPV vaccine is spoken about already in all of the sex education classes. There's massive negative connotations attached and outcomes attached to the HPV vaccine, but they're making sure that your son and your daughter know that they don't need your permission, parent, to go get that STD vaccine. They want them to go get it. They don't need your permission to do it. And that's also very much a part of comprehensive sex ed, is this division between parents and children. You don't need their consent. You don't need their support. We're going to be here for you. We'll get you the care that you need. You don't need to seek. You guys, you don't even need to, your children don't need permission to have an abortion at 15 in Colorado. Your children don't need permission to be on contraceptives in Colorado. They will do all of this without you. And you will never even know what happened. There's so much more. There's another bill that's attached to all of this called 1120, which is called the Modernizing Mental Health Care Bill. And it allows for your children here in Colorado, 12 years old and up, to receive mental health and psychotherapy services, not only without your consent, but not even your permission. You will never even know about it unless if the mental health provider says you can know. There is division built into every one of these bills like this. Comprehensive sex ed is very much about cutting the parent completely out of the child's life. And that's probably one of the most grievous things to me about this bill, is that you are no longer a factor. We don't need you. In fact, I know one of your videos revealed what we all know already, is that they're trying to find more ways to get parents out of children's lives so they can do what it is they want to do. And it's appalling. It's shocking. And a lot of people don't believe it's happening.
Yeah, their attitude towards parents is you're in the way. Your worldview, your politics, your religion, your morality are the problem that has to be done away with in order to create this brave new world where young children are radically sexualized. At the ages of 3, 4, and 5, they're picking their genders. They don't have to ask you if they want abortions at age 13. They don't have to ask you if they want birth control. And what you said is also important. This is bleeding over now. What's starting, sexuality is the camel's nose under the tent. They want to make this a mental health thing as well, right? In the sense that when you think about how much they call sexuality, right? This is no more about physical activity. This is no more about biology. This is sexuality as a way of life. And when you begin to factor in the mental health stuff too, there's almost no aspect of a child's development that shouldn't, according to these educrats, be the responsibility of the government and the school and not yours as a mom and dad.
You said it as better than I've heard anyone say it. That's exactly right. Parents, you don't know what you're talking about. Just let us take over. Let us raise your children. We'll do it far better than you ever could. We love your children more. Why don't you just step back while we educate them, while we feed them, while we house them, while we medicate them, while we sexualize them, everything that you possibly could have as a role of a parent, the education system is taking on, and it's mind-blowing. It's very destructive. not only to the children, not only to the parents, but to our local communities, because I don't trust my school district now. I'm worried all the time about what they're going to implement without me knowing.
Unfortunately, the only real answer right now, because this is not going to get fixed right, even if every mom in Colorado rose up against this, it would be years before you could even begin the process of pulling this out. The only real safe place for your kids in Colorado and most other states is out of the public schools. I mean, the only way you're going to protect them from this is to put them in an environment like homeschooling, where you are in charge, Mom, where you do decide these things. In other words, what they're doing, I like to look at it this way. Think about why people sign up for homeschooling. Homeschooling allows you to pick the curriculum. Homeschooling allows you to decide at what age you introduce complicated topics to your kids. Homeschooling allows you, the mom, to decide what kind of sexuality the kids learn, if they learn any at all. You think about what the public school is doing. It has accrued to it all the rights and responsibilities of homeschooling. They're homeschooling your kids and telling you have no right to any say in your kids' education. So last question, we wrap this up here. What can you tell the moms of Colorado? What can be done in the short term? Is there anything right now that can be done to push back against this?
Absolutely, because this will be the first year that this bill is being introduced. So number one, you need to call your local district. You need to call your superintendent of your schools and ask them, where do they stand on Bill 1032? Did they adopt 1032 into your district? Secondly, go to America's Mom, find your other moms in your area and bring them with you to counter this bill. It's not too late to keep it out of your school. What I've heard over and over from school boards, and I hear from other school boards in other districts, is they're constantly, quote unquote, digging for dollars. And they'll do anything to get more money, even if it means jeopardizing your children in this way and sexualizing your children. Because why? They think they can control the curriculum. They think they can control what's going to happen. But when an organization like a Queer Endeavor pops up and seriously talks about queerizing your PK through 12 classroom, whatever the heck that even means, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, but I can guess. Then we have to step in and we've got to be extremely vocal, extremely active. You've got to stop letting them tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, parents. You love your kids more than they ever will. In Colorado, we're still at a place where we can stop this. We do not have to have sexual education in our classrooms, in our districts. It's optional. And by the time I had finished the conversation with one of the chief of staff at our Capitol, his final answer to me was, you don't have to have sex education at your school, because he was so appalled by everything we sent to him. So people don't realize that in Colorado, you don't have to have it. It's not the school's responsibility to sexually educate your child. And so I would just call all those moms and dads to be active, show up, get your face in there, get your bodies in there, never go alone, and hold your school boards to the fire. Tell them what you want. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I love homeschooling, but your children are going to be working alongside those who've gone to public schools. They're going to be interacting with these kids later on in life as well. They'll be taking care of us when we're older. I believe it's our responsibility to fight for each other in our local communities. And this is the way you do it. You go straight to your school board. You go straight to your superintendent. You let them know you know what's going on, and it will not happen in this district. You are the final authority, parent. And we have a book coming out soon, just empowering parents, empowering Coloradans, empowering Americans. And Dr. Duke, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I can't tell you, I listened and I was like, oh my goodness, he knows exactly what we're going through. And why Colorado is not getting the attention that these big, massive states are, I don't know, because we have everything you have.
Sherronna Bishop, this is a really important issue. Thanks for taking the time to talk today.